I'm
Yeah.
very happy that, you are in a place that you've done so much work on yourself that you can physically say this and speak about it into a place of um, preventive help to help another person and to even help yourself by being able to vocalize it so that you aren't in the shadows anymore when those triggers do kind of arise or a flare up comes into the way. I know you did mention you did call the National Suicide Prevention Helpline. Um, what was that like for you? Because we speak so ever often about it. We're speaking to different nonprofits about how this is the place to go. And I still to this day feel like I look at it as, yes, it is a great outlet for people to call, but there is a stigma around it and a daunting one on what's going to happen next once you do pick up that call. So I would be very curious to know, and for anybody who's listening who may, have dialed it before and then hung up because they were too scared to go forth.
Mhm.
What was that experience like for you?
For me, just to say very bluntly, it saved my life that day. It completely did. Because it got me out of the immediate urgency of desperation that I was in. I was in such a spiral, is what it was. I've never had anything like that happen since. But it was all consuming. All I knew is that I couldn't take the pain anymore. I couldn't take the suffering anymore. I just wanted calm. And in my idea, like at that time, because it was an unhealthy mind, is that I would be better off like not here, which is completely not the case. So calling the National Suicide Hotline was it was almost out of body, to be honest. It's like when you,
Mm,
I don't know if you've ever had to, but it's like when you have to call 911 for the first time. Like you've
mm,
been, you know of it, you kind of like know what the gist of to say, but it's just like it's a very hard call to make, because it brings into this reality of like, this is a major problem. Like if I'm needing to call to speak to a stranger to really pull me off the ledge genuinely, I've got to reevaluate and look at and assess what is going on in my personal life that's causing this detriment. Because um, it's a pretty big red flag. Not anything that you need to be ashamed of or scared of, but it's a really huge red flag. But I would say to anyone who is thinking of suicide or harming themselves, it is such a brave call to make. And I would urge you to, because it is going to, the professionals there are wonderful. They get you out of your head. They help you to um, have a sense of calm, which is very like necessary, because at that point you're in a very black and white sort of like point of view that can be dangerous.
mm.
um they just, I think they completely did their jobs that day, and at least on this end they saved a life that day, which I'm so thankful for.
I am too. And I want to know, what were the steps then after that? Did they just hang up the call? Did you go somewhere immediately? Or did you sort of feel like it brought you back to being able to see your senses a bit clearer that were around you to then be able to go, all right, my next step is treatment or my next step is getting back into therapy?
I knew my next step was treatment, simply because of the severity of everything. Like without getting into detail, my suicide attempt was a close enough call that it scared me straight. It completely just like frightened me, and I knew that a normal dose, normal meaning going in, just a few times a week, perhaps talking to someone, that I needed way more intense care than that. And
Mm,
round the clock care, because at that point I was a bit of a liability to myself. I remember telling them at the hotline I didn't know if I could be safe by myself that day. And so what they did is they gave me a list of treatment centers in the Los Angeles area that, like, if needed, I could just simply walk into and say, hey, I need a bed. I'm scared of like being by myself and harming myself right now, and like no questions asked, they're going to help you out. So that
wow.
that let me know that not only was there help out there, but that I needed to get out of California was another thing too. There's this bubble here in Los Angeles that, like, I knew I had to get out of that bubble. It
Yeah.
wasn't enough to just go, oh, let me go to Malibu and go to a rehab out there, which those rehab centers are great. It's not at all to say that they aren't wonderful spaces. But for me, I needed to get out of the environment of like seeing people that maybe are familiar faces. Like I just needed it to be a bit more worldly, and a bit more authentic, I'd say. So I traveled out of state to go to rehab. I went to a treatment center out in Arizona, and the time frame for me calling the National Suicide Hotline to treatment, I'd say was about a 2-week span. Because there are just like logistics you got to go through. Like there's interview process, just to make sure that you're going to the best treatment center possible. So yeah, it was about 2 weeks from that phone call to walking through the doors at the treatment center.
Wow. And in the midst of those 2 weeks, did you ever end up going to any of those treatment places that you could just walk into in LA?
I didn't wind up going to any of them. It didn't get to that point. I had more eyes on me at that point. My fiance really was checking in a lot more. I had the support of my parents. They knew what was going on. I felt like I had enough, I had entailed enough like rescue people in my life that I was able to get by those 2 weeks without needing to go anywhere else.
And then when you went to treatment, what was that like? Was there ever sort of a moment you were there where you were like, oh, wow, whoa, like how, is this the right place for me? Or were you very much, did you have your brave boots on the whole time way through and go like, you know what, I know this is where I need to be and I'm going to stay here until, I feel comfortable where I don't need to, uh, where I know that I have control again over where my mind can go because I have the tools to be able to walk alongside it.